Welcome back, edelsys here. Have you ever wanted an awesome tier list video about the Caprinae skills? You're in luck. Which ones are good? Which ones are bad? Who can you rely on when the hell stages come to play? Let's get started. Beeswax skill 1 starts us off with a solid middle-of-the-road B tier. It has good cycling and decent damage on a large AoE, but it's generally outclassed by her second skill. Beeswax skill 2 used to be a staple, but now it's just abusable, because we have more than just Bana for block now. Still, there's no understating how valuable the skill can be when you need to keep guys in place for a while. Speaking of Bana, her skill 1 is crap. It literally just saw use in my 919 video I did recently, but it's just not very good when compared to her second skill. The only reason to ever use it is if you're up against enemies that have more defense than she can reasonably handle, but little enough damage where the reduction in max health keeps her alive longer than chipping off— oh my god, that's a sentence. Keeps her alive longer than chipping off her own health with skill 2. Absolute garbo, go to jail. Skill 2, meanwhile, is better. It used to be the only source of physical damage in the entire niche, but times have changed, and it is now just pretty solid. Most of Bana's value comes from her immortality, and she doesn't really need standout skills to leave a strong impression on the niche. Carnelian skill 1 is Diamante tier, offering more survivability than anyone could ever need at the cost of actually doing anything of value. Her skill 2, on the other hand, is decidedly abusable, packing a really solid bind-up time when charged and respectable DPS on anyone she's trapped in her range. It's also remarkably good with attack speed increases, reaching a permanent bind at a bonus of 67. Carnelian skill 3 is not quite the titan it once was. Back in the day, it had only one source of true competition in Volcano, but with Aya getting a much better module and some newer sources of big damage in the niche, it just doesn't make the cut above B tier. Maybe when she gets a Delta module, she'll return to her former glory. Deckenbreaker skill 1 is B tier, because despite being the weakest power strike the Geeps have available to them, it's still got a nice AoE, and the fact that it's AFK means I can spend more time mulling things over and soaking myself in the past. Skill 2, on the other hand, is quite abusable, offering more damage and more control than skill 1, but without giving up the solid consistency it has to offer. Skill 3, unfortunately, is one of the most blatantly stupid decisions Hoyoverse has ever made, having auto SP recovery instead of offensive recovery, making it explicitly worse and landing itself in D tier. You are better off using Irene even in this niche. Diamante skill 1, on the other hand, is a masterclass in synergy. See, it applies Necrosis, which means it can set Ebenholz up for full power Delta Blasts, which is very relevant and has thus been used in dozens of clears. Skill 2 is a little underwhelming though, as it's unable to clear 1/7 with help from Aya's caster buff talent, so it has to go in C tier. Next we have one of the oldest Geeps of all, Earth Spirit showing up with a banger of a first skill. Yes, it is a generic attack up, but because she's a decel binder, it means her slows actually do more damage, making it solidly abusable. Her skill 2 is where things really come together though, and I'm not kidding when I say it's S tier. It may not be as necessary now that we have so many more ways of dishing out damage and blocking and all of that, but nearly every single one of the Geeps greatly appreciates the ability to keep a ton of enemies stuck in place for a really long time. That's why Carnelian skill 2 is so high up as well. It's just Earth Spirit has like a more potent slowing effect at a fraction of the DP cost. She's the glue that keeps this niche together, and we the Geeple love her so much. Okay, so Ebenholz's skill 1 is in a kind of funny position. Because it doesn't actually reduce his attack stat, it means it actually pumps out a lot more damage than you might expect. In particular, if you have a large crowd of small enemies, his Y module can absolutely shred through them, and his Delta module can pump out some serious damage on enemies in Necrosis Fallout. Diamante synergy, anyone? Anyways, it's just not very necessary, even if it's fairly impressive in its own right. B tier. His skill 2 has a lot of positives, but it's annoying, so it's crap. Skill 3 is Ebenholz's bread and butter, solidifying his identity as a twink sympathizer and his role as an absolute staple in the niche. The amount of technical skill you can bring to the table is just perfection, and each of his 6 modules interact with it in a new and interesting way. Next, we have Caster Ea Skill 1, which is definitely a relic of its time. See, it increases her attack speed when you first use it, and then on the second and all future uses, it also increases her attack. This is very similar to Thorn's Skill 3, which has really fallen off in these past years. When's that guy getting a module anyways? Oh well, it's Diamante tier. There's just no reason to use it over Skill 2. The aforementioned Skill 2 is a staple now until the end of time. A 25% res shred is too valuable in a niche with more of a focus on arts damage than caster knights. The damage has fallen off somewhat over the years, but if nothing else, you can always try to set Ebenholz up as well as Diamante does. Skill 3 is the stuff of legends, doing insane damage in a huge AoE, but unfortunately that is no longer anything special after Carnelian Skill 3, so Volcano finds itself squarely in B tier. Actually, no, it's not even backloaded damage. C tier. Next, we have the other Ea, and what a skill to start on. Ea Berry Skill 1 is an infinite duration skill, which means it takes 70 seconds to do anything at all, which is almost as long as Volcano takes to get its second use. And it doesn't even do damage. D tier. Next. Skill 2 is confusing. At M3, it gives a barrier that lasts 20 seconds on a 20-second cooldown, so you have to click it constantly instead of having it just automatically activate or being, I don't know, infinite duration? What the fuck, Project Moon? Absolute trash, D tier. Skill 3 gives her global range, which means she doesn't exclusively target Lessing anymore. How will my boy grow up strong? Unbelievable, D tier. If Inez uses Skill 1 in IS and no one is there to hear the spinach activate, will it even do more arts damage? Kuro Game asked this very question when developing her, and the answer turned out to be no. Oh well, C tier. Skill 2 is in an interesting position, because on the one hand, it lets her bind a lot of enemies at once and does way more damage than a Vanguard should be able to do, and reveals invisibility in a larger area and arguably broke the DP economy, but barely anyone in this niche feels like they can use Inez at all, so how good can it be? It's definitely abusable, but watch yourself. Skill 3 is a true Helidrop skill, which sounds impressive until you realize it's on a Vanguard, which is the worst archetype in the game. And also, it's auto-activate by nature of being a passive skill, which means it's pretty fucking bad outside of stupid AFK clears. D tier. Next we have Lessing Skill 1, the strongest power strike in the entire game. Porterer is decent competition until you realize he attacks once every year or so Lessing takes the lead by just a pinch. It may not be flashy, but the consistently high damage is highly abusable. Skill 2 is a true Helidrop skill, which sounds underwhelming until you realize it's on a guard, which is the best archetype in the game. And also, it's auto-activate by nature of being a passive skill, which means it's pretty fucking good in all situations. Once he gets a second module, this thing is going straight into Stapletown. Skill 3 is the first skill in the game to remove status effects from the user, but some will tell you it's incomplete. What they don't realize is that it's actually a good thing that it doesn't negate things like Degenbosser's Disarm, because it forces him to take a moment to relax. He's had a stressful day and needs his rest. S tier. Lastly, we have this skill, and unless you're a Caprinae superfan, you may be wondering what it is. This is the skill of Touch from Integrated Strategies, which makes the elite healer able to give out SP and HP at an even greater range to even more allies at once, as well as buffing the attack of all medics. What, on the planet? This skill literally buffs healthcare worldwide. It has to be S tier. Hell, you know, this wasn't sorted within the tiers, but Touch gets to take the #1 spot. Good job, Lasangle Incorporated, creators of Fate Grand Order. You really knocked it out of the park with this one. Alright gamers, thanks for watching my tier list video. If you want to see more epic Caprinae content, go ahead and restart the video as many times as you'd like. Thanks. Bye.